Is John Yamako on the call?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here, Robert.
Okay. So I know there was a little mix up. A blast went out earlier about the meeting starting at 7, and that's been changed, and the meeting starts at 6. First of all, we had on the agenda the transition audit, and the auditor is unable to be here tonight, so we'll have to reschedule that. Director Plack issued some questions. They were answered. We'll post the transition audit on Building Link with the Bob Plack's questions and answers, and then we'll schedule a meeting at a later date, because there's no sense in proceeding with that, because I couldn't answer the questions or describe exactly it's the auditor's audit, and they'll have to help us dissect that. So we'll do that at a later time. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here, and I want to thank all the people who have worked very hard in the last 2 years to bring us to this inflection point. We are at a point in time now. We started a journey 2 years ago. That journey was to rehabilitate our finances, to put us in a position to do major projects and deliver a 5-year plan. And we're at a point now where additional work, we should be able to do that with a reserve study, the work with our new team, our new maintenance team, who's been reviewing the building, looking at things that have to be done, and really looking at what things can be done in-house. By the maintenance team, we have a plumber, and we're going to have a wallboard guy, painter type person who will be able to assist us in getting work done, and also advising us as we develop projects to move forward. Again, things have moved very rapidly. Despite all the pitfalls, despite the mismanagement of the previous management company, we have delivered. This community has delivered significantly as it relates to protecting us from major water leaks, to giving advice. I understand I don't have the paperwork that because of the work that the community did, that our deductible for water, which is now $100,000, will be reduced to $25,000, which is a big achievement. We will also, our insurance policy will go down a few $1,000s, but the big thing is that our water deductible goes down $25,000. I don't have the paperwork again, but we will get there. We have major projects that we have to do. I believe that and looking at this budget, that with some alterations and changes, a few minor changes and things that we've talked about, we will be able to deliver $600,000 worth of work each and every year for the next 5 years. We'll be able to get those projects done that we've been talking about for the next 5 years if we continue the work that we're doing. Again, we are at an inflection point. And I know there's a lot of things that have happened in the past and a lot of things people want to discuss. And I believe the board will be discussing some of those things at the next board meeting. But at this particular time, it's time to look forward, to move onward and upward. We have done the work. And now it's time to take advantage of this opportunity to get the things done you want done, all the aesthetic works, all the conversations about how the place looks. We have an opportunity to do that in an orderly fashion. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Yamako from ComSource, who this is his budget. This is ComSource's budget. Three of us, Gada and Tony and I, looked at it, but we wanted to preview this, make sure that the community understands what it is, and have some discussions about what changes can be made. The goal that this process started with a year ago was to clean up a lot of the stuff that was there, which we did. We're now receiving the fruits of that. We possibly can get very close to $800,000 contribution to the reserve fund next fiscal year. And so I think that, again, this is a great achievement from $180,000 when we started going to the reserve fund to $600,000, possibly some number close to $800,000. So John Yamako, would you take over and explain the budget?
Sure.
I should also point out that I did also send you all an email with my comments to the budget earlier today.
John, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Robert. All right. Yeah. So as Robert said, we did create the first draft of your budget here at ComSource. So the first draft was created by using the FY19 and 20 year-end audit totals as benchmark for each category. So we also created a column with the May 31st totals and another column annualizing each category based on the year-to-date figures to that point. So that was really the starting point for the first draft, you know, based on our limited involvement with your community. That was our starting point. Then I sent draft 1 over to your general manager, Lisa, and your engineer, Serge, who both provided their feedback, given their familiarity with your day-to-day operational needs. So based on that feedback, we created a second draft, which, as Robert stated, was reviewed by him and a few other board members. So based on all the feedback, I compiled a third and then a subsequent fourth draft of the budget, which we have before us today. Hopefully everybody has a copy of that budget. And I don't know if it may be, if we can maybe screencast it or screen share it. I don't know if that might be.
I made you a co-host so that you can share your screen if
great.
you like. If you can't, I can
Oh.
bring it up, but you should be able to.
Let me give it a go here. Let's see, what's everyone seeing here?
A budget. Oh, no,
Okay.
it went away.
Went away. Uh-oh. Okay, let me try again.
Okay, it's
All right,
back.
are you seeing the budget?
Yep,
And it's scrolling as I scroll?
yep.
Great. Okay, so I made my full screen. Hopefully everyone can make it full screen so they can kind of see everything at once here. But I think it would be good to start with other income, because the assessment income and parking assessment income is essentially indicative of the funds that we need to collect to offset the expenses. Also worth noting, on the left side, you'll see here the GL codes. They're color coded. Green here represents categories that already existed with FSR on their financials, and they're still being used with the ComSource financials. Yellow represents owner maintenance. I'm sorry. Yellow represents categories that were not being used with FSR, but are being used now with ComSource. You'll see that here, an example with owner maintenance. And then no color represents categories that have not been used and are currently not being used, but are recommended for your future budget. Here on the right, you'll see a few items highlighted in yellow. Those are the totals that will require some dialogue for us to finalize. I also expect there'll be several non-highlighted items that the board will want to discuss. So with that said, we'll jump right into it. We'll start here with other income. The first highlighted item is interest income. So you guys had budgeted $5,000 there. Through May 31, you collected under $1,800. That's primarily due to the market conditions at this time. We are expecting that to reverse. A lot of it was pandemic related, but you know, that's kind of a guessing game. So that's the first thing that I'd like clarification on. We put 5,000, which would be flat funded from last year. And just to clarify also, I got a question about the fact that there's interest income, GL code 40450, and then that's seen again later towards the end of the budget under reserves contribution, reserves interest 67535. And I'll scroll down so everybody can see what I'm talking about. 67535 is right here. The reason for that is when the interest is received, it's coded as income, and then it's immediately deposited to your reserves. And we do that to just ensure transparency and make sure that any income received isn't accidentally used for operational needs. So that's the first item for board discussion. And Robert, can you tell me how you prefer to?
May I please
Yeah, I was going to
ask-
say, how do you prefer we do this? Should we go through all items and then come back, or just go one by one and stop? And then I'll let the board opine on that one.
Can I just
we
one
go-
clarification? Is the interest for the operation and the reserve bank accounts, or is the interest for just one? I
No,
wasn't
you
clear.
don't accrue any interest for your operational accounts. These would
Okay.
be like CDs, money markets, et cetera.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so John, I think we can go category by category and ask questions after each category. People,
Okay,
all right?
so any comments or feedback for this category? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so we'll continue.
No, I do. I don't
Okay.
particularly like anything that says miscellaneous income. I like to know what that is, because, I mean, if it is an income,
Sure. Yeah, sure. So we do our best to categorize every single income category that you may have. Without fail, every year we end up having some form of income that wasn't categorized, so we need to have somewhere to put that. I can give you examples. We've had things like, key fob income, funds received from cable companies, kind of like a marketing incentive, pool pass income. A lot of times those things are categorized, but sometimes they're not. Like, for example, you guys currently had some miscellaneous income. I looked into it. It was key fobs income. And for that reason, you'll see here, we're recommending a key fobs income category. But that's not to say there won't be other possible surprises that we didn't budget for. So that's why I leave that there.
Right.
Yeah,
But for example, in the
I-
past, we had a formal account for late fee income. And this past year, mysteriously, there was none, mysteriously. And so I don't think that's a reason to eliminate that budget account. We always used to have a account for late fee income.
Okay, late fee income. Yeah, we could certainly create a GL for that, no problem. Or it could be put in with the reimbursed legal fees. I've seen some communities do that because assessment, delinquencies, legal fees, et cetera, can be grouped. But that's for board discussion and a decision we can carry out either way.
I think the miscellaneous 2,000, though it's very little, not worth really wasting time. But I think that is misleading. I personally would like to see that removed. And I would like to be more specific, because we don't sell pool passes, so there's no income there. The only income we get is the fob. Now, if you, how do you want to do the maintenance income? That is, you have it. So I don't see anything else that could be as an income, other than maybe if somebody's making a copy, but I think the 2,000 is misleading and it's overstated. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Well, I think, again, we can go back and see the historic levels of late fee income. There was a GL code with FSR, and we can go back to 2019 levels and budget for that here. I mean,
So Gianmarco, as we go on, are you comfortable? Is this a workable document? Can you just add a line here for, for late fee income that the board can then look at after this meeting as a whole and say, okay, this was a suggestion. You can always fill in the numbers later, but just as a reminder point, can we do that?
Sure.
I just think it'll be the
so
easiest
yes.
way to kind of progress.
How about a
So you're saying
comment?
like insert a line?
Actually, Gianmarco, if you do that, it's going to throw you off with the emails, especially mine, where it goes by the line number. So maybe you want to put it just aside under notes and just color it, put yellow next to it.
Okay, how about this? I'll just create a
Marco,
note.
I'll make
Yeah.
a note, and you can keep moving because I know your time is limited. So I'll make a note.
Okay, let's do this.
Add that.
We'll take
Thank you,
careful
Lisa.
notes. We'll compile everything, and then we'll send you guys a summary on draft 5. We'll make sure to get all the notes included in draft 5. Okay, thanks, Lisa.
How about an
Next.
income comment?
Yes.
Okay, if you look at assessment income for parking, it's $25 a month per parking space.
yes.
Raising it 1.5% would raise it to $25.37.5. Wouldn't it be far easier to do $1, $2, $3, $4, or $5 increment, keeping it a nice, clean, round number, and not making our accountants go crazy with decimals?
Yeah, sure. We can certainly come back to that. We'll come back to those two at the end, the assessment income and the parking assessment income. And we'll determine the best way to go about that. There was also talk of leaving the parking assessment income untouched, so just flat funding that one and only incorporating an increase to the assessment income. However, that's a topic we can come back to at the end once we get an understanding of the total expenses.
Okay, then,
All right, so
then on line 22 and 23, those should be collapsed. Those are the same item.
okay, yeah, that was one of the items for discussion. So storage rental income, I'm under the understanding there's storage spaces, but then Mr. Platt, you also
Yes, so, but
rent
the
out
only
spaces,
thing
so
we
you're saying
charge
those are
for-
identical.
Yeah, the only thing we
Okay.
charge for is that storage space. All the others are free.
Got it. All right, so I'm making a note, and Lisa, please do the same to remove GL 47175. Thank you.
Although I would, never mind. Go on.
Gianmarco, sorry, Gianmarco, a question, Gianmarco. If we have, are the GL codes that are in the budget the only GL codes that we can assign expenses to? So if we have, I think back, if we rent some other space at some point in time in the year, should the board decide to do that, would we not have a GL code to allocate that for because it's not in that fiscal year's budget?
No, you will. So if you allocate funds to a GL code that's not in the budget, it'll appear on your financial statements. But when it says, amount spent versus amount budgeted, the amount budgeted is going to say 0. So it's always going to look like you're over budget for that GL category. But to answer your question, you can code things to items not budgeted.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, parking income, that was another item that we had discussed. So we did a calculation, and thank you to Lisa and Brian for this one. So there's 2 inside spaces. We initially thought there were 3. So those would be at $100 per month. That equals $2,400 a year. There's also 7 outdoor spaces at $50 a month, which equals $4,200. Grand total $6,600 a year. So that's how we came up with that figure.
I would be careful with
next one-
that. We historically
Okay.
have not done a very good job of renting the outside spaces. So as that's income, I would be very careful about putting the full amount in there.
I agree with that, and I also don't agree that you can rent it down for 100 because owner to owner, they're renting between 60 to 65. So if you
Well, some-
want to really be genuine, like, yeah, they're few, but they don't, so that's my opinion. And I think that is an inflated price and again, misleading. I would rather make it less. Let's be surprised and get more money, but to budget for it to be 6,600 based on an assumption we're renting everything. I mean, let's hope we can, and there's no reason why we shouldn't, but I would not put it because that's misleading as an income.
Do you have
I
a
think
proposed
the
figure,
answer to
Donna?
the answer to that is to consider renting the outdoor spaces to people from outside the building. It wouldn't pose any security risk to us, and it would certainly bring the market into equilibrium.
That's illegal. The association is private property. You cannot do that. So I disagree with that.
I do not think it's
Lisa,
illegal.
Lisa, put down a note to have further discussion on that because there's a possibility we will not be able to rent them. So put that down on your list of things that we need to discuss.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. That sums up the other income discussion. Before we move on, did anyone want to touch base on any other income category? Okay. Moving on to expenses now. We'll start with your administrative expenses. I have highlighted 4 items for further discussion here. The first is the education line item. So I was asked, what exactly does that entail? Lisa did an excellent job in looking up pricing for each continuing education course. So up here, you can kind of read along with me. Essentially, this would be for any credentials to keep in compliance, for any developments within the various trades, CAI courses, which is the Community Association Institute for community managers. So here we have an estimate of $300 each for Surgeon and Lisa. Continuing education is $500 per employee. You have 4 employees. I'm sorry, Surgeon, Lisa, Ronnie, maintenance tech, 4 employees per class. Then you have some miscellaneous expenses that'll be related to that, which includes parking and mileage, and the PCAM designation for your general manager, Lisa, which would involve a $200 application plus $500 for the case study. So that was pretty much a precise estimate of $3,600. Any feedback on that one? All right. Legal expenses. Now, this is a big question mark. Historically, you've been well over budget here. This year for 2021, your expenses have been lower than the prior 2 years. For this current budget, which we're currently still operating under, you budgeted $35,000. We kept that flat funded, although I know the board may have some further discussion there in terms of a strategy. So now would be the time to determine whether this looks reasonable or if we want to increase or decrease that figure.
I think the sad reality is that it's still underfunded and we need to budget more.
I think the board needs to discuss that further. Yes, we're under budget and we go over budget. I think last year was like $100,000. The year before was $100,000. And the board's been discussing ways to cut that back. I think there's some alternative methods of resolution that we need to discuss, and we're doing an RFP for attorney, but $35,000 is not going to get it. I don't think your numbers reflect the most recent bills that we got. So I think it's going to have to be raised, and I think that is a discussion that the board's going to have, and we'll have to have that discussion and get back to you, John.
Noted.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, the next category here, office supplies and expenses. So this was based on your reduction for this current year. You had budgeted $15,000. However, through May, you only spent $4,200. This could also be merged with office supplies line. It was 110, I believe it's changed. Let me see, office supplies, office equipment. So that's something that we could do. We budgeted $1,000 for office equipment, and then we budgeted, sorry, I lost my place here.
6,000.
6,000.
Thank you, 6,000 for office supplies and expenses. So office equipment is usually like, bigger equipment. Office supplies and expenses is your day-to-day stuff, pens, pencils, ink, water deliveries for the office, various things get coded into that category. So again, I know that's much less. It's less than half than what you traditionally budgeted, but I'd like some feedback on whether this looks realistic and that's something that the board thinks we can sustain going forward.
Does this, go ahead, Bob.
I would think that since we've gone from having a large number of on-site employees, 5, to going down to 4, you'd expect a proportional decrease in both office supplies and perhaps equipment. There are fewer people using pencils.
Agreed. It also includes front desk supplies and things of that nature. I would say that I was roughly estimating $500 a month. But I do think we do need, as a possibility, some office equipment. So there's that possibility. So I thought roughly $1,000 to help cover if we have to get, a chair or, something of that nature, equipment wise that they need.
Definitely need about 3 chairs, so.
Yeah.
And the newest one is officially taped up. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
support that. I think keeping them separate is totally fine as long as they're coded correctly, which, you know, is up to your folks on your end.
Yep.
Yes.
So just to understand, so you're projecting for this year, we budgeted 15 and you're projecting we'll spend about 63. So you're trying to budget 6.
Yeah, that's an annualized amount. So essentially it divides this number by however many months it's been and then fills in for the remainder of the year. That's not to say that's always accurate. This isn't
Right.
like something you buy the same amount of each month. But yeah, that's a
Right.
general baseline that we used.
But that does not include your office, like equipment you were just talking about, right, Lisa? That's in the other line 111, like chairs and stuff.
Yep, that is correct.
Correct.
Which is $1,000 there.
I think I think that's fine. It makes sense to me. How are we okay on computers and stuff like that, though?
No, I think we're gonna have to do some updates on some software.
Okay.
Like
But
one of the-
software is not as gonna cost the same as hardware. So I mean, I'm just saying if we need new computers, we need to triple that budget.
Yeah, I think definitely through this year, we can get through. I think next year is gonna be something different.
I think it's a generous amount, and I think it should be merged together just in case, they keep hold of their pens and not have to overspend. That way they can, whatever money was not used for supplies could go to furniture, for example. So that's where I'm coming from. It's easier to merge them and get, I don't know.
But I'd
Anyway,
rather see that you have an
I-
overage under furniture and
Yeah.
an under in supply. It's better for future to see exactly where you're spending it. I think it's 6 to 1, half
Exactly.
dozen the other.
That's
Yeah, I'm-
also a good point. I want to go back to the $10,000, which is the fire service test and license. Is that based on a contract that we have? I'm not sure where that number came from. Up where you are, you don't need to scroll down, just where you are.
It's the extinguishers.
Line 40.
Okay,
Line 40.
I see.
It's a.
Yeah, that's your testing for, the fire extinguishers and sprinklers.
Yeah, that's an existing contract.
Okay, thank you.
And the
Okay.
contract amount is
All right.
$10,000. Why isn't it listed with previous amounts? Is it something we're just starting?
Well,
Or
the
just
fire
separating
So
service
it-
test-
That's an annual test and fire, that's annual. Okay, we have to have that.
Yeah,
But
but if
why
it's,
don't we have experience?
why is it not under contracts?
And why is it not like in the 2019 and 2020 columns?
So they
You have fire
coded them.
extinguisher contract. Wait, go down. You have a GL for fire extinguisher contract, line 75.
These are.
Did we double count?
Maybe overdue.
Yeah, so Lisa, have you conducted fire service testing, the sprinklers and the
No.
alarms since taking over? Yeah,
No,
that's why I put maybe overdue, because I hadn't seen any invoices come in for that. Lisa, are those the same? Will those be the same? I guess what we're trying to figure out is
No.
if we should
fire
remove.
extinguisher, the fire extinguisher contract is separate from the fire sprinkler system testing.
Okay,
So do we have any historical data for the fire service testing and license? I know we had it done within the last 2 to 3 years, so we should have an invoice to get a more accurate amount for that. Because we
That's
failed.
That's an annual thing, and I would suggest that Lisa put that down and we can clarify that. We search the records and get the accurate amount.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying, I think Bob's right in asking for historical data. I think it exists. So if Lisa could try to find that.
Yeah, Marco, I raised that in my email, but I don't have it in front of me, the 3 line item for the fire. And I wasn't clear, and I still am not. So just a note for discussion later.
okay, yeah, let's look into that one a little in more detail, and we'll get the actual figures. But yeah, I believe they are still gonna have to be split up the way they are, but we'll verify that.
But because there's no line item for the actual fire extinguishers, that's also another thing that I raised. But anyway,
Okay.
Yeah, there is line 75 is the fire extinguisher contract.
Right here.
Yeah, but we don't know what that entails. I was asking about that. I'm saying. I-
That entails checking all your fire extinguishers and then they tag them, confirming that they've passed the inspection and that they've been recharged,
And-
with
and if-
adequate.
And if not, and we need to buy new ones, is there a line item for it?
That would be under the same line item.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. All right. The one that I have under administrative that is I think a duplication is spreadsheet line 35, which also duplicates the tax and audit at the bottom of the. There's another general ledger code at the bottom for tax and audit, and I worry that you've duplicated the amounts twice in the budgeting.
Okay, let me take a.
I actually raised it as well in my email.
The annual audit is $9,000. And we've paid more out this year because of the difficulties we had. The auditors had to do additional work, which I believe we should get reimbursed for the additional work from First Service. I've had that discussion with them, but I'm waiting.
Amen.
I talked to the board. I want to wait to talk to the board to see if we should follow up now or wait until we have a bigger, that's a whole nother discussion, but the annual audit is $9,000.
Right, but we've got 19,000 budgeted, right?
Where?
10 plus 9.
No, the other one is 6,000. It says audit and income tax. So my question, when I put my note, I said you have auditing and tax and the other one income tax. So maybe you need to correct it because you can't have them.
Yeah, so I see that. I see your point. So yeah, currently the way your financials are set up, you have both, which is why both were included on the budget. But I believe you may be right in that that's a duplicate, one at 10,000 and one at 9,000, which is 19,000. But let me verify that. I'm gonna have to do a code search for both of them and then see what FSR previously had coded to each one, so we can better understand why there's two categories. So I'll make a note of that as well.
Because under
Actually-
the tax filing method, effectively, we don't pay very much taxes at all. It's like virtually zero.
Yeah, I
Um,
think he gets it. Let's move on. We don't have a lot of time.
We have a separate category for the income even when FSR was here. So I'm kind of confused, but anyway, point to discuss. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, very good. We'll get an answer for you shortly on that one. We'll move on here. The next one, and it's the last one I had highlighted for administrative expenses. It'd be a new category called community support expenses. We don't have a GL for it, but we can certainly create one if it's something we'd like to keep. So I discussed with Lisa, she was explaining this would include decorations for different holidays. There was discussion of a possible continental breakfast or new homeowner orientation, snacks, drinks, etc. So again, that's up for board discussion. If that's something we want to keep, we think it's something that would go a long way with, community PR. But
Actually, we have the social committee. If anything, maybe we should have a welcoming committee. I personally oppose this. You can't have a continental breakfast. I mean, people work. Where are you going to have it? And, I think we have other major issues, and maybe a welcoming committee is something that the board should consider. That is a nice gesture, but and maybe we should also consider the social activities and things like that. Maybe like other condos, people attend a pool party, they pay $5. Maybe we should also consider that. So I am personally totally opposed to this. We have other important issues. So this is not a category we had. I don't think we should add it.
I think it's a nice thought, Lisa. We have a lot of decorations for different holidays, and I think that kind of stuff can probably come out of social committee. I would maybe support, I mean, there have been times in the past when I first got here, we had like drinks and snacks at like the Meet the Candidates night and stuff like that. So I could see it being that, but I wouldn't put it that high right now. I think yeah, as a priority, I think that it's a great idea for the future, but maybe this year drop it down to like 500 and then see what happens with it. And you and I can certainly go through the social committee closet and see what you have available to you. For
Yeah,
stuff.
that'd be awesome.
I will say, I really like the idea of I've not heard this before, and I like the idea of the kind of new resident welcome, or like doing something like that quarterly. I don't know, having never done anything like that before, I don't know what sort of costs would be associated with that, but I think it's actually a great idea from a social perspective, but then also as a way of like getting people aware of what the building rules are and like level setting expectations. So I do support the idea. I'm like $2,000, I'm not gonna fuss about, but I don't necessarily think that.
Well, it's just because I was looking at roughly, I averaged like 500 a quarter. That's why it came to that being that amount, because if I was going to do quarterly, so it wasn't, just
I would-
give you an idea.
I would honestly rather, because our social committee budget used to be much larger, and I mean, we haven't spent last year, but when we do if we do the large pool party and the large holiday party that we've done in the past, those are both about $2,500. So they're already over the budget that we dropped down to. So if we were going to use that money, I'd rather put it all into one social committee fund and have the social committee work with you to help,
Set
put
aside
on those events and
Just a few,
figure it out within our budget.
That's a good idea.
Perfect.
So that's just my thought. And also, we try to do potlucks for those events. We've never requested donations and money. We can always look at that moving forward. But we certainly try to do potlucks as much as possible, or I always did. And that's, where I tried to save money so that we weren't spending. But even with potlucks, we were still ending up at like $2,500. So
I think it's a great idea for next year. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, I would like to see it removed.
Okay, Lisa, I'm confident you've noted that.
But not,
I'll move on.
but not forgotten.
Not forgotten. Thank you. Okay, moving on, your utilities. This is a big ticket item here. First, looking at your electricity. So you budgeted 170K. I noted that as of mid-year, you were well under budget. You were at 77K. However, I did have some discussions with Robert, and the general feeling is that it would be safer to keep that line item flat funded and see some consistency in the reductions before we decide to reduce the budget. So I kept that as is at 170.
Yeah, so
I'll just run.
let me-
Okay, go ahead.
Let me just say, okay, so during the fiscal year last year is like 171. And I think the snapshot that you took, as we discussed before, you took a snapshot of the lowest period that we use electricity.
Right.
And right now in the summer, we're gonna kick up electricity like crazy. And so I think 170 is the appropriate amount because we have a contract that I think is 2 years on. And I think we're gonna use about 170 again. So I think that's we're looking at ebbs and flows and how the utilities work.
Thank you for that clarification. Yeah, and we did the same thing with the gas and your water and sewer. We essentially flat funded both of those. We did add $12,000 for water irrigation. That was brought up by Lisa for your water bill. So that brings that grand total to 192,000. So in general, there's a 2.1% increase in the expected utility consumption for this coming fiscal year. And then we can certainly adjust next year based on the actual figures.
Let me speak on that. This is Robert. I had a conversation with Lisa. I think that irrigation situation, I'm not sure we have to do with that, but that should not be in that category. But the water usage has consistently going up. I think we've used close to 195,000. Mr. Dean and Mr. Dawson did a study. So I think that again we're looking at the lowest period for water because now we're in the summer. And we got the pool, we got water in the grass. So I think that it should be at least like 190, 192 should be just for water alone, and we can deal with this irrigation. I think we can talk to Serge and them about what we have to do with that.
Is the irrigation water irrigation, or is it the infrastructure, like the actual sprinkler systems?
It's
No,
the sprinkler systems they're talking about, I believe. Lisa, you want to speak on that, or sir? Or, you spoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, well, it was obviously additional to the water that obviously the sprinkler system would, add into that water, line item.
But the fact is that Arlington is raising its water rates. So even if usage was constant, and I admit that it's not, it's variable, but if it was constant, we'd have to escalate the total amount by the proposed rate increases of Arlington's water and sewage.
But can I ask a question? I mean, this year we hypothesized that it was much higher because it was COVID and everybody was staying home, so we're utilizing more. And this next year, as a lot of people are starting to go back to the office in the fall, maybe it would balance out in that, less water usage overall, but higher rates. And we don't really know, but I mean, I think that
Yeah, I think though.
that may be something to consider.
I think we have to take into consideration that even the year before, we were under budgeted by a big amount. So I think like for total water usage, I think you got to be at this 192. I'm not sure what this area is. That water or is that some sort of maintenance thing? This irrigation?
No, it's just adding, it was estimating an average with water.
I would say
So-
I would say that we need the higher number for water. We're utilizing the pool this year, and but we are doing. Let me finish. Can I finish? We are doing, after talking to Serge and Lisa, we're monitoring the watering of the grass much more effectively than we've done in the past. And so that may give us some relief, but it's going to get raised. I don't want to be underfunded for water. So I think the 192 number is a good number.
But you want that for water alone, not for irrigation. So my question, Lisa,
I
is,
don't understand the irrigation piece, okay?
well, I was going to ask, is there not a line item, or is there a line item in previous budget for irrigation? Why do we feel like that's not included in this total that we have already?
To be honest with you, I wasn't sure if it was, or, meaning like, that's where you place,
I thought there was the landscape, part of the landscaping budget was
I
the
would
maintenance
think it
of
would just go under
irrigation.
water. We pay water bills. This is what we
No,
pay. There's no way
I
to
agree with
distinguish.
you, Jessica. The water that goes on the lawn is in the water budget. But the maintenance and repair of the irrigation system, which is I think what Robert and some other people are asking about, was in the landscape budget because it used to be covered by the Bright Room contract. The
Right.
landscaper
But-
also does the maintenance on the irrigation system.
But
Okay,
we're
so-
just gonna take that
12,000
comment out, okay?
Okay.
Just take the comment out.
Okay,
That's all
listen,
we're gonna-
here's what we do.
I think we're
For
fine where
water,
we're at.
for water.
Yeah, let's stay at
for water,
192. 192.
192 for water, and then we'll figure out, put that down, Lisa, what is this irrigation thing? If it's a maintenance thing, we'll deal with it. If it's not, 192 is a good number going forward for the water.
Got it?
But Jim Marco, just to remind, and Robert actually, during the meeting, you had mentioned that you wanted to add for inflation. So
Yeah,
what,
Yeah, we had also discussed an underground leak, I believe, at the pool, which might factor into your water expenses. So, yeah, I do think keeping, a little cushion in there is wise. It sounds like everyone's on the
This is
same page.
this is an
with
increase.
that.
I mean, you want to make it 200,000, I don't care. Look.
If that's
I
the only
thought,
leak
I
we
thought
have,
you
we're
had
lucky.
said 200,000.
Okay,
I
so-
thought we had,
Okay, everybody slow down, slow down. Okay, water's gonna go up. My only question is this irrigation thing something separate or apart? I think the water bill, the previous budget was 150. 2 years ago, we moved it to 180. You can easily take it to 200 without a problem.
I would do
I
that.
personally would prefer 200. I don't know if there's objection to that.
Move
I'm
it to
fine with
200.
that.
I would suggest we move it to 200,
Yeah.
Got it.
okay?
Okay, noted. Thanks.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else for utilities before I move on?
Nope, keep going.
Just let you
All
know
right, let's
that,
do it.
John Marco, you have like 15 minutes.
I know, I got somebody covering the first 30 minutes for me. I figured we'd go over. Don't worry. Thank you.
A
though,
good
Lisa.
man. Good thought.
Thank you,
Um,
John Marco.
Sure, no problem. All right, so next here, I have the cleaning contract highlighted. That's your janitorial agreement. So if essentially your agreement renews for 2 years, if not canceled by October 1st. And within the agreement, they built in a 3% increase per year. So this figure is based on that 3% increase. I don't know if there's been discussions to renew or not, but based on the information we have, that's what we budgeted for that.
I
think we're gonna
can't,
do an
I
R-
can't
we're gonna do
stress
an RFP.
enough
We're gonna
that
do an
we
RFP.
need to get another cleaning company. At minimum, we must get quotation from another cleaning company. I
Yeah,
cannot
I think
stress
we're
that
gonna-
enough.
Then we need
think
to
we're gonna
increase
do an
that
RFP.
number.
I think we're gonna do an RFP. We are gonna do an RFP for a cleaning company. So I don't know
Then
what the number's
I
gonna
think we
be.
need to increase that number because when we did the last RFP, this was the middle of the road company. I think we're gonna look at potentially much higher costs.
Correct.
No,
Right.
actually, I'm not sure I agree with that because we used to have more people at 150. You reduce the number of people at 116. So really, they're all more or less in the same range. You just reduce the people or you added the people. It's not that their prices were cheaper. Plus their service is not better either. But anyway.
I think that. it
And
has to-
obviously, the board can have that discussion to, if we want to do an RFP, because we have that on the board agenda, just
I
to
think we're
have a
gonna- I think
discussion.
We're gonna do an RFP. I think you have to, at the very least, budget something more because of the change in laws and the minimum state
Wage law.
is higher. Okay, they've increased the minimum state hourly rate, so it's higher. So maybe we can just call around and get some idea, but I think that's.
I would put like
Maybe-
140.
We put it back to 150 as it was.
Yeah, 140, 150. I'd be fine with that.
Fine.
Okay. Got it, thank you. Next, your carpet cleaning contract. So this, Lisa confirmed, is the actual cost for your building, which is, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, it's $6,000 per carpet cleaning. That's if it's done on an annual basis. So that would increase if it
No,
were.
so they were actually, we were looking at having it like done at least 3 times a year. So it's about roughly about $3,500 per cleaning. So we were like trying to estimate in there in case we had to do an additional cleaning. But
We
the
used to do
cleaning
quarterly.
contract has also within it, a carpet cleaning, just one. So we were trying to look at least having 3 for the year.
We
So
used to
one is
do it
included
quarterly.
and then 2. Okay,
You
I
should do it
think we should
quarterly.
Yeah, and I
Good
think we
work.
should continue to, especially with the state of I think a lot of people felt that it really helped with like allergies and pollen and just the dingy carpets. That's my personal opinion, but whatever.
I think just in a brief discussion, we found out, I don't know how we found it, that the cleaning company was scheduled to do one in their contract. We wasn't getting it done. And we finally got that done. I think in the discussions that we had with different cleaning companies, maybe that can be incorporated and we can save money. So
Yep.
that'll be part of the RFP discussion.
But there are several other contracts that aren't listed here. We have we in addition to the one duct cleaning per year done by our CSC, our laundry vendor, we entered into a duplicative contract with another contractor to also clean the laundry vent ducts. That's one contract. There are several other contracts we've talked about. We've talked about a contract to clean the windows that can't be easily reached by the normal cleaning crew, and also clean the ducts, the non-laundry ducts, and each of those could also have an option to have the unit owners buy in for the windows and ducts of their responsibility. So we might want to broaden the number of lines for contracts to cover those other types of contracts.
Okay.
I can certainly add that if that's what's preferred.
Yeah, but what, I don't really, I mean, I saw Ronnie up on a ladder yesterday or today doing the front lobby windows. And so outside of the lobby windows and potentially the windows of the back community room, which he could probably also reach with a ladder, although maybe not, I don't know. But I mean, what other windows
Oh,
is our building responsible for?
No,
The
the-
outside of the elevator lobbies on each
Yeah.
floor.
yeah, those typically get cleaned up in the spring when Dominion Windows comes and does the owners units as well.
So I'm
Right,
saying we
so-
should do a Dominion deal.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I've ever seen them do those windows. So maybe Lisa can just do some research on that.
Yeah, they didn't do them last year, but they did do them consistently in the years before.
Did they?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Did you say, so you were also saying that you had a contract in the past for cleaning the laundry vents and then also the trash chutes?
The
Well,
trash
we had-
chutes, yes. The laundry vents, I don't know what you're talking about, Bob, that you think we have a double.
We have in the CSC contract, there's a once a year cleaning of the ducts,
Right.
okay? But then we entered into, and I think it was probably a mistake, but we did enter into another contract to clean them biannually.
With whom? I don't recall that.
Semi-annually. Semi-annually. I can visit with Lisa offline, but if we're getting rid of the contract, that's fine. But we should decide whether we want the contract once a year or twice a year, and the contract comes up for termination within a year of now. So we've got to renegotiate the laundry contract anyway during this fiscal year. So that's a big unknown. The CSC contract in terms of how much income and what services come with it.
We'll figure it out.
Okay,
Got it. Okay, so we'll look into adding possible additional contracts. Staying on the topic of contracts, your concierge contract, it was at 192K. There was a recent increase of $1,400 a month for some additional administrative services,
I really
which
think
are,
I think this is a HR thing, and I really think the board needs to discuss this in executive session.
understood.
Okay.
That's my opinion, because I
I
have some
agree.
things to say, but you know.
Let's move
Got
the
it.
process. The process is doable. Let's
Move
move
it.
the process, okay?
Yeah,
Moving
but Gianmarco, I think
Yes.
it's, everybody can appreciate, and maybe the community would like to share their opinion. This is, what are the services, for example, that the community would like to receive? And are they receiving it? Maybe their input can kind of also help us. Just a thought. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay. Consultant fees, you currently don't have that listed. That's essentially would cover any kind of engineer, consultant for any major project that you guys take on. This can also technically be grouped in with a reserve payment, if it's related to a replacement reserve project. Many communities like to keep that as part of their operational expenses. I put it in there, estimate at 10,000. That's something I guess that the board can let us know if they'd like to keep, or if you prefer to keep it out and just group everything into
Traditionally, the
reserves.
bills that I looked
DeMarco?
at, the contracts, let me finish. The contracts that I've looked at and the bills that we paid over the last few years that were for previous work, the consultant fees and the oversight fees from outside engineers were paid out of the reserve fund.
Marco,
Got
the
it.
one that I can think of is the reserve study itself. We have to have it every 5 years. It's required by Virginia law to do it in 2022. We sort of started on a refresh, but it got stalled. I can talk to you about that offline. But I understand these things cost $20,000. In your other buildings, do you budget the reserve study itself as an operating item or reserve item? I would think it would be operating.
As an operating item.
yeah,
Right. So maybe we should keep this line, raise it to $20,000, with the idea it is the reserve study as opposed to project management or supervision of some capital project.
If we're gonna have a line item for the reserve study, I would like it to be explicit that it's a line item for the reserve study, rather than just that keeps us accountable and we have some transparency in terms of what that $20,000 is. I don't mind adding it, but I think. we
Yeah,
need
no,
to-
Jessica, you make
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, you make an excellent point, but I think we should have a placeholder reserve study consultant and $20,000. And I hope it's less money, but you know, I called around and that's sort of generally the neighborhood I got.
We did do some work. Aaron Turbin did some work and had some estimates on a new reserve study. I don't know if we had.
Well, we
still
weren't
have
gonna
them,
do a full reserve. We were just gonna do an
but she had
update.
the estimates. She had the estimates for full reserve, and she had the whole 9 yards. So let's do
Well, it's
some-
required every 5 years, and the last one you did was in 2017. So in 2022 would be your time to do another one.
Okay, we're not. Okay.
Budget year.
Okay, so I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is there was some information available to help us guide us through that process. I'm just saying we got time. Let's take a look
Yes.
at it. I'm not saying
Okay.
anything else than that. That's all.
Okay, so $20,000 for reserve study, put in under the contracts.
I just
Yeah,
said.
and I'll look
wait a minute,
into-
Slow down. We're gonna do the reserve study line. I know we had some information. Let's take a look at it. We're gonna be meeting again. Let's take a look at it and put in whatever appropriate number it is, okay?
I'm of the opinion, if it's gonna be reserve, I'm in agreement. If it's gonna be consulting fees, I'm not.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I'm proposing reserve study and I'm saying the best number I've got today is $20,000. I can give you a different number tomorrow and we can discuss this offline, but let's have something in there.
Yes.
Absolutely. Let's move the process, okay?
Okay, moving on, all the way down here to trash removal contract. Again, that was flat funded based on your contract. Your agreement expires January 30, 2022. If the board wishes to cancel, it must notify the vendor by November 1st.
We
Or it
have
will-
to cancel this contract. Lisa, please put a note in your computer. These people are horrible. They suck. The contract is poorly written. We have to cancel it. Let's not miss that date.
So when you guys got bids, where was this company in the spectrum of price?
But the problem was,
Mid-range.
the problem we had, this contract, I understood we had negotiated with another company. And then we found out that this contract had automatically renewed. We didn't know it or it was re-signed, but we had anticipated removing them and it was at a lower rate. But you can flat fund it now. We're gonna do an RFP on that. That's something that has to get done.
Yeah, I
Has to.
think the number is fine, but yeah, that was a
Okay,
David Clark.
Right.
got it.
Let's sign a crappy contract for 5 years.
Let's sign every contract we can for 5 years.
Gianmarco,
Okay.
before,
Yes.
I'd like an answer for the point that I raised, which is the line 73, the elevator contract, and line 122, elevator maintenance. And I was asking, doesn't the contract include maintenance? Or is that
No.
maintenance 5,000 is when it breaks down, it's outside of the scheduled maintenance?
You got it. So there's certain things that are covered in your contract, but other things are not. If somebody abuses the elevator in any way and it causes damage, that's going to be coded under a separate GL than your typical contract. It's going to be additional. So that's why we keep both categories.
All right, thanks.
Can you
Sure.
scroll down to that for a second, just since we're talking about it? You said 121. How much did you put in there?
5,000.
$5,000.
Lisa, can you speak to, because I think the parts that are like the most concerning at this point for these elevators are the control panels. And if I remember correctly, the last time one died, it was like $8,000 to replace it. So I'm just curious where you got that $5,000 from, Lisa.
Well, we were just estimating and putting in
Okay.
there. We didn't know anything more about, like, based on what we're saying or what they're saying, like, there's not been, with your routine maintenance, they're gonna bring up anything that goes, and anything like that, like a control panel, could actually come out of replacement reserves.
Yeah, it's
So-
just just for what it's
It's
worth,
just,
right?
like,
These are on
more
our
for, like,
list. of-
after hour calls, like.
Right,
the-
okay.
The door won't open, it's stuck on one floor because somebody got something wedged in the track, there's little things like that that will pop up. So that's why we're estimating that. Any big part replacement would be out of replacement reserves.
Yeah, and you spent $2,300 through May. So.
That's why we kind of went with 5,000.
Yeah, that's kind of what we
Okay.
based it
I
off
mean,
of.
yeah. We can talk about that later. I'll tell you what I know. But
Okay,
Okay, all right, good.
excellent. All right, any more questions for contracted services? I believe we hit all the highlighted ones. I'll move on here. So now, next is the fire service.
Wait.
Here's a question.
wait, sorry.
Yes.
Trash removal, the bulk
Trash
roll-off
removal,
dumpster,
yes.
why'd we go down in cost? I mean, if we're still doing it that should be fairly standard. I mean, usually we do it
I
quarterly.
believe
for
that was
about
based
2
on the
weeks.
actual contract. Is that one of the ones you had looked up, Lisa?
No. No.
Okay, I'll put,
we
let me
were
put
just
an asterisk just
estimating,
to
I
verify
think,
that.
at that point.
Yeah, that should be fairly fixed. Can we just verify that maybe?
Sure.
So you're saying keep that one at 4,000?
Probably.
I just like to check the number, but yeah, I think it should be.
Yeah,
Hanan,
check
you,
the number.
you,
I think that at some point we had an extra dumpster or something. That's what made us screw the number.
Well,
but
it can
check
be
the
more if-
contract. Let's
if
just
they
check
fill
the
it up
contract,
with-
Move on.
yeah, just check it. If we fill it up and we replace it, we spend more money, but it should be fairly standard at 2 weeks quarterly is about 2, maybe 3 dumpsters. But Hanan has her hand up, so I'd just like to recognize her. Hanan.
Yes, hi, thank you, Jessica. This is Hanan. I have a quick question. Going forward for the future, I think we need to add a budget line item for annual maintenance for the recent restored travertine flooring in the lobby.
Right.
Yeah, Bob
Yeah.
already mentioned that, Hanan. We got you. We agree.
Okay, good, thank you.
We'll look at that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Actually,
So-
isn't there a contract already signed with them?
No.
Oh, I thought they brought a contract.
Yes,
No,
they brought.
there is no
and-
contract, there is no contract, but when the time is due next year, they will send a reminder that the floor is due for cleaning, and then they will submit the invoice then.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to the fire service category. This one was another kind of question mark up for board discussion. We put 20,000 there. I know you guys have an upcoming project that's related to your fire systems. It can be fully funded from reserves. Sometimes there are certain things that get funded out of the operational, if there's like a minor change order or something like that. It's really however the board wants to set that one up.
I
And
like
then you have your
to,
fire systems.
I had a discussion with, I was discussing some of these things with Lisa and Serge. I forgot to mention that. I would like for, have a discussion, another discussion with Serge and Lisa about that particular item, because I'm not sure what, what people, we need to understand that some of these things that are on this budget, because we look at the audit is a reflection of, the numbers on the audit, a reflection of reserve and operating. So I'm not sure what this is and what that will entail, but I think we need to take another look at that to see exactly what happened or what we need to do in the future. And I will rely solely on Serge's and Lisa's opinion on that when we have a discussion tomorrow or something.
Yeah. So this is Jen. I had a request. I talked to Robert about this, about, we need to do the upgrades to the fire system, and with that, obviously the hallways will need to be repaired and updated as part of that project. So my suggestion transparency point of view is, that's all coming out of reserves. But I would like for us, and, however way we want to do this, to demonstrate in the budget that we are budgeting, $20,000 or $30,000, specifically for that, we are saving that money and putting that money into reserve specifically for that project, because it's going to be a big multi-year, very expensive project, and one that I think that, will ultimately come out of reserves, but I think we need to add to our reserve contributions in order to meet that expense.
Absolutely. What we're going to do, Jen, because we just got the budget, once we get to the finalization, I agree with you 100%. And then we know exactly what the reserve contribution is. Then we should do a exactly what you're saying, show an allocation for the fire alarms and the fire alarm system and the hallways and the other items that's coming out of reserve, but to make sure that it's clear. And then we will do that. I just don't know exactly what the number of reserves we're going to be contributing. And so we will do that at the end. I agree with you 100% because it's a big ticket item and we need to be very transparent. We need to be putting money towards that to get that done. And people need to know that's where the money, that's what we're doing with the money. So I agree with you.
I would like to say, yes, we need to do the fire alarm. All these are capital projects. If you leave this fire alarm repair within the operating budget, this money could be easily reallocated as we have seen happen in the past. Now, yes, ComSource will operate differently, so I have faith in that. However, the 20,000, if you were to approach the fire system as I have spoken to you about, and as per my discussion with the engineers that I spoke with, you need starting point, you need $60,000. So 20,000 is really not going to do anything. I'm of the opinion this money stays in the reserve, but what I would like to see, and I don't know how personally to do that, take the reserves money and create a plan for the reserve money. In other words, say you have 100,000, have an account someplace, in not an account literal, but virtual, just kind of say, okay, 100,000, I'm going to use 20 for the fire. I'm going to use this for that, and plan it within the reserve, but you don't need to have it on the operating budget.
Right.
So I am of the opinion this line item should not be here, should be removed. And when you address the fire, when you do the homework and you get the proposals and all of that, and the board says, go for it, then at that point you can transfer from reserve to the operating.
Yeah,
But
so
right now, this money should not be here.
okay, so I think what Jan is saying, what God is saying, what I'm saying is basically the same thing. Is
Take it out.
Take it out, and I just want to make sure, I want to check with Serge to be sure, but take it out. And we're going to have a separate, my suggestion is going to be consistent with Jan and Gada, is that allocation be shown on a piece of paper as we put money in and as we take money out, so people realize where the money's going. So we just have to figure the format, but I'm in 100% agreement. And I think that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I think maybe shift to the reserve section out and not so much. I'm hesitant to take it out as a line item entirely, but can we shift that into the reserve expenses when we get to that section? Have like a line item under reserves?
So this is the operating budget, and there's going to be a separate document for the reserve, and in that.
Oh, I misunderstood that.
Capital spending plan.
Okay.
I misunderstood that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll shut up now.
Okay, go ahead. So you got that, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Got it. Yeah, it's noted.
Okay.
We're moving both of those items.
Okay.
Yeah, the monitor is essentially the routine quality assurance inspection, during the installation and after it's installed. So we've noted that. Next category, supplies and equipment. These are essentially all new GL codes for you guys. It looks like before you had it all grouped under one master code. So
No,
these figures
we
are
actually had the each expense. We did that on one side, and then as each one was expended, we coded them separately. So there should be experience for all of these items in the past because there were GL codes separate from that.
Yeah, so it
we
looks
had-
like it wasn't on your budget, but you'll see here the totals are reflected, so they were being coded throughout the year.
Okay, so-
But again, when we would look at the budget for each line item, it would say 0 next to it because, again, kind of like what I was explaining before, if you budget for if you don't budget for something and then you use the GL, it'll show up on your financials. So what we're doing is we're actually putting it on your budget. So we have a benchmark each month and we can compare the actual expenses with what we projected.
Yes.
So the first one here, electrical supplies. Gada did point out that they were very elevated the previous 2 years. However, based on some discussions with Robert, Lisa, and Serge, and based on the current inventories, we do expect that to decrease. Is that accurate, Lisa? Did you have anything to add there?
I
That
can-
is correct.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's based on, Serge has done some research in the building. He's found some electrical supplies, and based on the fact that they're going to be doing work in-house, Serge is committed to doing a lot of this work in-house. That's the number that he's comfortable with.
Great. And then this item we've already discussed, that's the office equipment. I think the decision is, I think the consensus is to leave it so we can differentiate between office supplies and office equipment. Next, we're moving on to maintenance.
On the signs, is there any way we could cut that in half for next year? I mean, $1,000 for signs is a lot, given what we've done historically.
Well, but we need to update a bunch of the signs. We need new signage for the garage entrance. We need some
Yeah.
signage at the entryway for off of Army Navy Drive, so that way people stop coming in the out.
And signs are not cheap, especially if they're reflective and you have to set up the print of it. So,
Yeah, I would prefer to keep that because I would like to see some updated and new signage.
I agree.
me too.
Got it. Okay, anything else for supplies and equipment? Any of these categories before we move on here? All right, moving on to maintenance. So the first one, 58100 building maintenance. At the previous budget, I guess this was the kind of catch-all that was used, and then throughout the year, different GL codes were used for specific items related to building maintenance. We decreased that significantly. I think there was an adjustment very recently, which decreased that to $50,000. So this essentially covers any general repairs and maintenance that is not specific to any other category here. It's very hard to predict that. That's going to be something that we'd like to work and kind of get a baseline and go from there. But we did also split up several other maintenance categories. A lot of these figures were projections that Serge and Lisa were able to come up with based on their understanding of the property. One item here, let's see, that I got highlighted, tools and shop supplies. That's another one that per Serge's inventory, well, it seems that we're very well stocked there. So we were able to reduce that a little bit. Through May, you had spent about $20K in tools and shop supplies. So we expect that you should be well stocked at this point, and we cut that in half from what you spent this year. Robert or Lisa, did you have any other discussion for?
Yeah,
that line item?
Robert, can I go before you, please?
Yes.
The tools, by the way, is a misleading. Having gone through the strong room, having seen how they were entered, the rental was coded in the same way. So I can tell you this number is misleading from previous year,
Okay, so,
for what it's worth, but
so I talked to Serge and Lisa today on the tools, because I had some concerns about the amount of money for tools. And Serge again said, we well stocked with tools. And however, there's certain tools that he may need in the future. He's comfortable with this $10,000, and this is not for rental, this is for purchasing of tools. On the building maintenance piece, let's go back to it. Another reason that it still remains, we had some discussion, is because they're going to be doing a lot of work in-house. They're going to be doing more work in-house. Serge is committed to doing that. And so we don't know exactly where that's going to fall, but that gives them the flexibility to do that work, and then we can code that later. And the tools, he indicated that there may be some tools, but we're well stocked with tools. So I think these are good numbers, and they are. I think this all falls to the category. I think we have a discussion next week. Several board members and myself been talking. We're going to. This budget is based on tight fiscal restraint and oversight, and that, you know, the board is going to have to, according to the auditor's report, the board is going to have to be responsible for this spending. And is that can't be, you know, just come up and haphazardly spend money, and we have a contract, and I think there's going to be some discussion about that. This is a tight budget, and there's going to be some adjustments because we want to move as much money into reserves to get those big projects done. And so Serge and Lisa are committed to doing that work and bringing those issues to the board. And I think that the board, we as a board, or the board that's going to be in the future, have to recognize that they're supposed to be managing the building. We're supposed to be asking serious questions like, why are we doing this? Should we be doing it? Can we do it better? And those type of questions. But those projects have to be prioritized and have to be approved by the board. Otherwise, we're going to go out of whack like we did in the past. So I think that discussion is going to be held next week. But that's why I'm comfortable with that 50K in there, and comfortable with the tool situation, because they're not going to go out and buy tools unless they talk to us or to the board. Go ahead.
Gianmarco, I don't know if you have the points that I raised, but I'd like you to address the 127, I think, the HVAC maintenance. Let me try to find what I had said, the HVAC line 127, HVAC maintenance 25,000, and line 76, HVAC contract 16,500. To me, I find that kind of like, shouldn't the contract
So
include?
sure, the contract, it covers your chiller, cooling tower, inspections and maintenance. The HVAC covers anything outside of that contract. So certain things will be covered, but just like the elevator contract, there's going to be certain repairs that aren't deemed part of the contract.
Lisa,
Well,
I don't know, Lisa, if you had anything else.
historically, we hired ABS to go unit to unit to overhaul and
Yeah.
check each HVAC unit. And
And
so
that's
there
what
was a-
eventually is gonna be happening with Serge and his team, once we get up and running and we're able to do inspections, because that's gonna be one of the priorities, is to look at their, you know, the HVAC system, since they haven't been done in over 2 years.
Yeah, I think with Serge, this is Robert, what Serge indicated to me today is that the reason that number is the 25K is because that's basically for parts. They intend to do that work mostly in-house. And they're going to be buying, purchasing. So it won't be like one big bill that you put under a contract. It's going to be a lot of parts, replacement parts and things that we have to do. I guess we have to determine whether that's reserve or not. Those
I
parts.
think if,
Let me finish. I think, but he believes that that's going to be needed to do the work. A lot of it has to do in specific areas, but it's going to be in-house work. Is that correct, Lisa?
That is correct.
I think if
Okay,
anything, it's low. I think we're gonna start running into issues with their fan coils and individual units. And if we have to replace them, so I think you have to keep it at least there.
Yeah, it's there. He said that he mentioned fan calls. He will be doing that work. And that's
Yeah,
for the
but-
purchase. That's for the purchase of the parts to do the work.
Right, but we may need to, as the association is responsible for actually replacing those fan coils, they're all fairly aging. And so if we're gonna run into some issues where he can't fix them and we need to replace them, I think an individual unit is like $5,000. So I'm just saying that number has to stay there. If not, it should maybe even go up, but I don't think we know right now.
I think if we replace the unit, that's a reserve item.
Okay, my other question was the line 118 and line 124. I had made the remark about building maintenance at 50,000 and general repair and maintenance at 25,000. So my question was, one, it's too broad of a category, and then how are they different than each other? So I would like to add something to it and just see what you think. Is there any way, for example, we can, like in terms of systems, we can say boiler system, hot water delivery system, the chiller system, the cooling tower system, like break it down somewhat, because for me, building maintenance, 50,000, what does it entail? I personally cannot answer that. If I say general repair and maintenance, how is it different? I'm not sure I can
I
answer
got it.
that.
General repair and maintenance is no longer on the budget.
Okay, thank you.
It's no longer included here. Yeah,
So you did.
that was
okay.
per your comment. Yeah.
Okay, so, but as to
And then
the
he added
systems,
it. He added it to building maintenance and merged them too, but then with Robert, Serge and myself today, we took it back down to 50,000.
yeah, yeah, thank you, Lisa. But what do you think of the idea, like having like the boiler system, hot water delivery system, chiller system? Is it realistic to kind of break it down in that way, or just a thought?
I can tell you would be the first. I mean, all my other communities do have a building maintenance category. That's not to say we can't create GL codes. We can certainly create any code you'd like to use. Sometimes it's better just to have kind of a broad category, but if you're saying you want more specific oversight, I guess that's certainly a discussion the board can have if you want to go that route.
All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll just jump on real fast. I think even if we've got it, I want to keep that general building maintenance line item. This is Jen. That does not negate the need to obviously track every single expense against that line item. So I think, got it to your point in terms of tracking what those expenses are. Yes, I think that's absolutely necessary, but I don't think that precludes us from having kind of a general building maintenance fund that's not a specific line item. So
It's
they're not
staying.
mutually exclusive.
That is staying. They're not removing it. So
Okay, so I
we're
think
good.
we're good. Yeah, I think in the flexibility, they're going to need to do work in-house, and in fact that they suggested, not me, Jay suggested that anything that's not spent out of that category at the end of the fiscal year be moved into reserves. They don't, they may not spend all that money, but they just need that flexibility for what's going on. So
We don't know what to expect really, because we've only been here for like less than 3 months. So we're kind of shooting from the hip on some things, not in the sense of like not understanding buildings, but we just don't know some of the unknowns.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, this is very ambitious. For the maintenance, we're projecting a total expense of $174,000. That's almost $100,000 less than you budgeted last year. So we are really trying to get the most out of every dollar here. And be forewarned, we may be slightly over budget in this general category. If I would have to pick one category, just based on the sharp decline, we're cutting 35% out of the total maintenance expenses. Just before I move on to the next category, I just had one other thing to mention here. That was the garage maintenance and supply. We budgeted $4,000. I had a discussion with Lisa, who confirmed the new doors under warranty. However, your exit door is experiencing many issues and may require replacement. So that was the basis for that $4,000. Any questions here before I move on to the last few categories?
Yes, I do.
Please.
Sorry, which is line 120, the door maintenance, 1,500. Line 123, entry system maintenance. Line 129, lock maintenance, 2,000. I'm only asking just so that, when you enter the lobby, that system that we have on the left-hand side that is supposed to announce people to the unit owner that has not been connected. Now, my question, and I didn't phrase it properly, so forgive me for that. My question is really these 3 categories from what I could see. Does any one of them include the connecting of the announcement system? And is it something?
Yes,
That would be
entry
the
system maintenance.
Maintenance. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
correct.
Good. That was a good addition. We need to get that thing working.
I agree.
I have a related question, which is, we have the experience in Miami, Florida, so we know how damaging to a building having constantly flooded basements can be, basement garages. You know, do you think that $4,000 is going to be enough for the coming year?
I'm not sure how that ties into entry system maintenance.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about garage maintenance and supplies, $4,000.
Oh, okay, so that is essentially for the door. Are you
Right.
talking about, what kind of issues are you talking about addressing?
We're talking
specifically?
about water infiltration. We've already had to epoxy a lot of the concrete once.
Again, that would probably be a building maintenance item. That's where I
Mhm.
would code that.
Well, but the
Or some
problem,
of it could be replacement reserves.
Mhm.
well, that's true too. The problem is that we really, it's very important to code the garage stuff separately because it becomes the cost basis and justification for the garage space assessments.
Right. I think that Lisa and Serge are going to get it based on just to
Hi,
be careful.
hi,
Just to be clear, I think Lisa and Serge are going to do or have us bring to the board, have an assessment of our structural issues related to all that, and they'll bring us some information on that that the board can certainly need to act on.
hi, this is Susan. I have parking spaces 13 and 14, and they have a little room next to my car that I use every day, and it has flooded on the driver's side for years. The board went to go after me for having some sand down there. My husband put it there because we get out of the car and there's a flood of water. It was recently there again. So if you're going to give an assessment, I would like a reduction for that particular space, since I have to walk in water to get to my car. So if you're going to increase, how about doing a decrease? But I'd like somebody to tell me why the water continues to come out of that small room next to my parking spaces, which are $50 a month.
Well, and just on a side note, I can share with everyone that, we did have Arlington County out because we thought it was coming from a pipe and one of the main pipes that come into the building. And it is groundwater coming in under, and it's leaking from through into the other rooms. So it goes underneath the walls. And
So my car can go down, you think, Lisa? My car can collapse under, huh?
no,
I didn't know
it won't
that. I
collapse
thought it was
under.
always coming
No,
out
it's
of the
just
room.
that the water is there's no seal underneath the walls. So the water is just kind of traveling
Okay.
through between the walls.
And where's it coming from?
It's coming from inside the fire pump room.
Oh,
Oh, the fire
Pump room.
pumper?
Pump
Room.
Oh, the pump room. Yes,
room. Yep.
I see.
On that side, and then obviously on the exit side walls, the water's coming in through underneath the walls there.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for letting me know. And I guess I could alert you every time it comes out. I don't know. It's
We are aware.
almost
We
always
actually,
there.
at least Monday through
Yeah.
Friday when we're here, Serge does take a check of everything. He tries to have Ronnie help clean up some of that water when he can.
Mhm.
And they've been,
Okay, thank you.
keeping an eye on it. Mm-hmm.
I would like to.
All right. Thanks a lot.
propose-
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. I
Of course.
appreciate it.
Of course.
I would like to propose adding to the budget the structural engineer. I don't know how much that would cost to check the building and the structure and all of that. That's what I'd like.
That's the
us-
same thing as the reserve study, isn't it, Gada?
I'm
No.
just-
No, I
Just-
think Lisa is going to bring that to the board next week to do an entire structural review of the building.
The other thing is,
Just
you
the
know,
action of the request of the action for the board. There will not be a proposal yet.
Right, okay, but you're gonna move on that next week.
Yeah, we'll put it in front of the board to give us the request of the action to follow up with that.
Okay. The
Okay.
other thing is the ceiling, as I drive into the garage, I noticed that there is more from the ceiling coming down. And I think that is something that also should be considered in the budget to be fixed, because you can see the bars. And I think that is getting to be more serious.
Yeah, we're trying to understand a little bit more of the assessment of what had been done prior with that. So yes, that would be part of the assessment, structural assessment.
What I have seen, that is personally, I have seen some people, workers, knock the ceiling and put, not knock it, like, what's the word? Like try to take some of the, I can't find the right word,
Do they chip
cement-
it?
the cement off, and they're trying to level it. But I didn't understand why they were going down to the bars. And then I asked the question, they said, oh, we're trying to fix it. To me, that looked suspicious, but I don't understand it. But that is what I personally have witnessed.
Okay, well, thanks for that insight. We'll ask more for that later, but probably something that we would provide for the engineer that would do the assessment.
It was concrete that was falling out. There's more information, Lisa. We can talk later.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go, because
All right, moving
Keep
on.
going.
Yeah,
John
I'm getting,
Marco has to go.
I'm getting frantic texts here from another community, so I gotta get going soon here. The next topic is payroll. I believe that would warrant an executive session, so I'll skip over that. Let me know if there's any objections. And we'll move on to taxes and insurance. This is where your treasurer, Robert, saved your association a considerable amount. I had initially budgeted about 200K based on your current figures that I was seeing in your year-end totals from 2020. Robert gave me the precise figure of 112,000, so I made that adjustment. And then the income taxes and audit prep, which we discussed at the beginning of this call, with the actual figures were about 9,000. So these are both based on actuals, and it is pretty much in line with what you budgeted last year, about 5,000 more. Any comments, concerns, or discussion on taxes and insurance?
but
No,
we're going to eliminate the duplication,
Did I
right?
save the association some money, line 26, the payroll admin cost? Was I right or wrong? I'd like to think I was
Line
right.
26?
No, line 151.
126?
151.
No, 151.
So yeah, payroll administration, is that the one?
Yeah,
You did got it. Yes, it's per what you negotiated in our contract, it's 5% of the gross
Okay.
annual salary, which is lower than all our other communities. So yes, you
okay.
saved
so
money there.
So between Robert and I, Robert, you can take me. for
saving big
coffee.
bucks, guys. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully the community appreciates it.
Okay, so
Yeah, so if there's no,
I think
Go ahead,
we're
Robert.
down to, I think, John, we're down at the, John Dramaco. I think we're down, I think the reserve number is going to change based on the changes we made. And
they did.
I'm going to be making some comments about the reserve. I think we made some of them already, but I think you're finished if you got to go.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. And I got, let me just knock it out here to 10 minutes real quick.
Can I
So the
ask,
insurance,
excuse me, may I ask
Yes,
a question
go ahead.
before you leave? We have
Please.
two commercial properties here. One is the salon and the other is the grocery store. Nothing has been done with them for years, and the grocery store has to be gutted. We need a contract to gut that place, get rid of all the freezers and all the other stuff stored in there, because that can be used as a partial, if not fully, commercial property. The same with the salon. It could be made into an office for an attorney or something of that nature. So those two were not included in any income. And then I think you'll probably get a little more income for the community room. I know people are using it already. So at this point, have you taken into consideration anything about emptying those 2 rooms for increasing our income here?
As far as I know, I
Hello?
haven't been made aware of any immediate plan to do that, but I'll let the board members on the call address that.
Yeah, the board would have to make that
Okay.
determination.
Well, listen, the fact that they've been sitting there for years, the board has a responsibility, or already had the responsibility, to empty them and did not do it. We also have another room underneath the pool. So I would like the board to come up to the plate and make sure that we get that income again. For whatever reason, that whole property piece is being neglected. And I think that there are many charities and places that could use those freezers. They're still working, but of course they're going to break down. And I would like to have Serge and Lisa take a look at both those places and make a determination for us in terms of income producing.
Sure.
Right.
Your concern is duly noted, and I'm sure we'll look into that along with the other items on our list today.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, sure, my pleasure. Just wrapping up quickly here, insurance claims. I put 10,000, just that would cover the deductible for one loss. I realize your water loss deductible is a little higher than that. That's something usually most communities put in there just as a cushion when you have a common element that causes an issue. The association is responsible for the deductible. And then a lot of associations also self-insure more minor claims as means to keep the premium low. And I think that would be advantageous for your community. The question is whether or not to leave these figures the same, but we can leave that for, we'll add that to the upcoming discussion. Finally, as Robert mentioned, based on all these adjustments and cost savings measures, we were able to contribute a significant amount more to your reserves than you budgeted for this current budget, over $100,000 more, which is an increase of over 20%. That still falls short of what your 2017 reserve study calls for. It states you should be at $2.6 million ending balance. That would only be a 23% funded. As of 5/31, your balance was $911,000. However, as of June 30th, I just saw you're a little over 1 million. So those are things that we'll have to come back to and discuss. And then you'll see the net operating income is 0, which is obviously what you want when the budget is adequately balanced. So when we take all this into consideration, in order to fund the expenses we laid out, it would require a 1.5% increase in the regular assessment and parking assessment income. That is still up for further discussion and adjustment. So that pretty much sums up the gist of the draft budget as we have it. I do expect there's going to be a few tweaks. I know Lisa and I have taken a lot of notes. So I'll leave you guys with that for now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any final questions before I go?
I have a comment. Yes, I have a comment, Susan. I want to thank you guys very much because I think you're moving along and you took over a place where we're nickel diming you everywhere that you go. So I appreciate that very much. There is a discussion out here on an increase to the maintenance fee monthly or doing a one-time assessment sometimes in April, not now, but when a new board comes on, and being very specific that the hallways would be done, the fire alarm, and some of the other areas so that the money will be specifically spent on those things rather than increasing because we are at the highest of many other condos in the area. So I think that discussion is currently, you may not know, going on among the community members because then you can divide it up as we did years ago. And most of them do. The representative does, the Barclay, most of them will put in a one-shot. Annapolis, they put in a one-shot assessment, they're done with it, and they keep the maintenance fees at a lower cost because that's the one that keeps on giving. And the other one is very specific as to what you're going to do with the money. So I just wanted to put that in as opposed to a 2% increase or whatever, that you ought to consider. We should forget it and then consider an assessment based on what we absolutely have to have with Amazon in the area and the fact that our place has moved down so far. So I thank you for that, allowing me to input that and not interrupting me. I appreciate it a lot.
John, thank you for coming. John DeMarco, thank you for coming.
Yes.
We'll be back with you.
Robert, I have a quick question on behalf of Hanan.
Go ahead.
Hello. Yes, Hanan, she had to leave. She had an appointment, but she wanted me to ask, what is the budget for the hallway renovation for this fiscal year?
Okay, so as I said in the outset,
Under reserve.
as I said from the outset, my vision, and we'll have discussion on that, is $600,000 this fiscal year for the hallways and for the fire alarm system in the hallways. Serge is doing some work on that. We're going to be doing a lot of work. And then $600,000 the following year. I think it's going to be broken up. That's what I was just going to discuss right now, is that if we can keep that contribution, reserve capital fund contribution up high, we can do $600,000 worth of work a year. And and if we do the $600,000 a year, over 5 years, that's $3 million. And you can't do more than one major project at a time in this building. Because if you do that, if you do more than one project, because one thing links to another, as we talked about, Ida, once you get up in the ceilings and everything. But I don't see anything in that the current reserve study, which is highly inflated. I don't see anything there that we can't handle under current circumstances. Now, if emergency comes and we have to do something about it, again, that's up to the board and the community. But as I indicated from the outset, it was the discussion, it was the vision to put this place in a financial condition that we can then fund these projects out of our monthly income. And, building up the reserve fund, we got, as John said, we'll probably $1.1 million before this is over. And we could do $600,000, maybe $700,000 a year in these different projects. And you worked on these projects yourself as well as other people. You've done a great job. And the whole PBC committee, we took a project that was scheduled for $250,000. We did it for $40,000. We can do the work. We are proving we can do the work. And I think it's time to move forward, put that 5-year plan together, get the reserve study done, and start getting that work done. So that's where we're at. And that's
Robert, this is Susan.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Susan, and I wanted to say that what happens when people are buying properties, and we did this, we look at what's in the reserves. My opinion is not to take $600,000 out of the reserves and leave it under $1 million. A building this size should have over $1 million at least sitting in there. So I would suggest to you, my original, see, you're still talking, I think you're still leaning towards a percentage increase in our maintenance fees, which were already high. I'm at 2006. 1 bedrooms are very high for this building, and so are 2 bedrooms. So at this point, I'm suggesting to you that you do a plan over the next few months. The board does the work, sits down and says, this is what we need to redo the hallways, and do a 1, 2, 3 assessment as they did with the railings, and then leave some money in the reserve so when people are selling, they're not at a disadvantage, which we are at this point. With 1,700 apartments being built by Amazon, we're in trouble unless we improve this place, and it's been said over and over. So I'm not in agreement with increasing the maintenance fees. I'm in agreement with deciding exactly what we want and doing it that way.
Okay.
And you are talking about taking 600,000 out of a 1,000,001. You're leaving the reserves in bad shape.
Okay,
So
I'm
I would,
saying that, Susan.
I'm contrary to what you want.
Okay, I'm not saying that.
Robert,
Yes.
may I
No, let me
comment?
finish. Let me finish. Let me answer Susan. She asked a very intelligent question, and it's a very important question. She raised some important issues.
Oh, thank you, Robert, dear.
But I'm not saying we have 1.1, we will have 1.1, maybe 1.2 million. I'm not saying take that and do the hallways. I'm saying the income that we will be getting from the next fiscal year.
Oh,
can
you're
pay
talking the future.
Right, we can pay for those projects, okay? And so we wouldn't have to
Yeah, but
spend,
we need them done.
right, we can still,
We need them done right away. We need them done right away, Robert. We don't want to wait another year or two. We want to just do, the hallways are atrocious and people
Can't do
don't
the
even want to
hallways.
walk in the building.
we can't do the hallways till we do the fire alarm system. We're gonna do that simultaneously. So
Okay.
I hear
No,
what
that's
you're
not
saying.
true. I'm gonna do an investigation on the fire alarm, and I
Tuesday.
think it's a 5-step process, by the way.
Okay,
And I'm
so,
calling the fire department to come and discuss it with me because I think we were given bad information, okay?
great, that's great.
Robert, could I-
Just so you know.
Susan, that's important.
That is the
because-
same information we were given, that it is a 5-step process.
Susan,
Bring somebody out, but you're not,
Well,
we already know
but you
this.
know, Jessica, you're moving and leaving to go up the street. Is there a reason why you continue to interfere in the processing of this building when you're moving up to 1515 and you're not moved yet
Point of
because you
order,
said
Mr.
you're
Chairman.
renovating?
Point of
Is there
order.
a
Hey,
reason
slow down,
that
slow
you're
down. I
attacking
gotta
me?
go. Listen, let me
Point of order.
clarify a few points. The point is,
Why are you attacking me?
listen.
Why is she attacking me? It used to
Susan,
be Reve,
Susan.
RFP.
Point of order.
Hey,
Susan,
come on.
let me answer your
Point of
question.
order.
I've contacted the fire department and we've talked to the fire marshals, and what they're strongly suggesting is something similar to what you're saying, is they have a department called code consultation. They will send people out here to talk to us about what we need to do to stay in code and the best way to do it. So we are going to follow those steps. And the board will
Right, good.
Board will move forward based on the information that we have an experienced mechanic, an engineer, based on the information that he gleans and all
Thank
that
you.
kind of stuff. And we're gonna move forward and we're gonna be, I'm hoping that the community and the board will establish a special committee to get this done, to work in conjunction with PVC and the budget committee. I hope to stay on the budget committee, move forward, and we will be very transparent. But all your questions and issues
Thank you, Robert.
are very
Thank you,
important.
Robert.
Take into
Thank you.
consideration.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, let's move forward. People, it's time to, I gotta go. Bob, what do you gotta say?
I would just point out that we can certainly get expert advice from local realtors or something. But that, first of all, one, special assessments do require a unit owner vote, so there's no guarantee that it would pass. And two, properties that establish a track record or history of a lot of special assessments, it hurts the reputation and the property values are hurt as a result. And finally, three, special assessments hurt people who are selling their units because the assessment is born on the person that owns the unit the day the assessment is made. It captures it in time, and the person they sell to sells free of the assessment. So the difference between paying a higher condo fee over a 5-year period and paying a special assessment is essentially a intergenerational inequity. Thank you.
So I'm glad everybody had up, but we're gonna have to have another meeting after we make these changes and some more communication. Again, I want to thank all the community members for the work they did. I hope that you see the work that you did. The work that you've done over the last 2 years has brought us to a different time and a different place. And it's very important that we keep that spirit up, that we continue to move forward, get this work done, keep our building alive. And again, personally, I thank each and every one of you for the work that you've done and the work that you're going to do. God bless you all and have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.